The champagne tower in the grand ballroom dazzled, like a pyramid of liquid gold beneath the chandeliers, each glass catching shards of light and scattering them across marble floors that had witnessed 100 years of softly told secrets. I tied the silk ribbon around the final bottle, my hands quivering slightly, not from the chill of the hotel's service corridors, but from the text still glowing on my phone. I look forward to seeing you at midnight. Don't be late. Marcus, my boyfriend of 8 months, the man I planned to kiss. When the clock struck 12, sealing what I hoped would be a year of fresh beginnings, the man who didn't know. I'd been working double shifts at Romano's hotel for 3 months, just to afford the dress hanging in my locker. A midnight blue number Marcus said would finally make me look like I belonged in his world. I should have seen the red flags sooner, fluttering like surrender banners. Stella, table 7 needs another round. Gina appeared at my side. Trey balanced effortlessly despite her 4-inch heels. She was my fellow server, and the closest thing I had to family in this city. And girl, she added, lowering her voice, stop checking your phone. If Marcus wanted to help you tonight, he'd be here, not texting from whatever VIP section he bought his way into. She wasn't wrong. Marcus had promised to meet me after my shift ended at 11:30, giving us just enough time to find a quiet corner of the hotel's rooftop garden before the fireworks began. But lately he'd been distant. Canceled dinners, phone calls taken in other rooms, lipstick stains explained away, with stories about affectionate clients at his consulting firm. I swallowed every excuse, because the alternative meant admitting I'd wasted months on another man who saw me as temporary. He's trying, I said, not believing it myself. His work is complicated. Gina snorted. Honey, the only thing complicated about Marcus Chen is how he manages to lie with such a straight face. Before I could defend him again, or admit she was right, the energy in the ballroom shifted. Conversation didn't stop. It lowered, the way a forest goes quiet when a predator enters. I looked up from the champagne tower and felt the air leave my lungs. Luciano Vitale had arrived. I'd worked at Romano's long enough to recognize the hierarchy of wealth and power that passed through its doors. There were the nouveau riche, ordering the most expensive wine, just to prove they could. There were old money families, moving with the hushed confidence of people who'd never had to prove anything at all. And then there was Luciano Vitale, a category entirely his own, a man whose presence demanded attention, without ever seeking it. His custom-fitted black suit probably cost more than my annual salary, and his reputation preceded him. Like a warning label, owner of half the commercial real estate in the city, silent partner in restaurants, galleries, and businesses that somehow never failed. And according to quiet conversations I'd overheard during late-night shifts, the head of a family that didn't appear in any census records, yet controlled more of the city's infrastructure than the mayor's office. He was dangerous. Everyone knew it. No one said it, and he was walking directly toward me. Ms. Morrison. His voice was low and measured, marked by an accent that suggested European boarding schools and fluency in multiple languages. I believe we have a mutual acquaintance. My name in his mouth felt like two things at once, a violation and an intimacy. I had never spoken to Luciano Vitale, never been closer than 50 feet from him. During the handful of events he'd attended at the hotel, I had certainly never done anything to earn his attention. I think you have me confused with someone else, Mr. Vitale, I said, keeping my voice calm and professional, even as my heart slammed against my ribs. Marcus. He said the name like it tasted sour. Your boyfriend. Or should I say, my employee? The champagne tower blurred at the edges of my vision. Marcus works in consulting. He works for me. Luciano's dark gaze held mine, unwavering, intense, making me feel both seen and exposed. And he's been stealing from me for the past 6 months. Small amounts at first, cash skimmed from legitimate business accounts. Then he got greedy. He paused. $2 million disappeared from one of my holdings last week. The floor beneath my feet felt suddenly unstable. That's impossible, I whispered. Marcus wouldn't... Marcus is a con artist, Luciano said calmly, who targets lonely women with access to valuable information or resources. His words were precise, surgical, designed to cut clean through denial. You work at a hotel where I conduct private business meetings. I maintain a suite on the top floor for confidential negotiations, where, coincidentally, a master keycard went missing from the security office 3 weeks ago. The same week Marcus began asking you about your work schedule and which rooms were occupied by VIP guests. Gina's hand closed around my elbow, steadying me. Around us, the ballroom glittered and laughed, oblivious to the way my entire reality was fracturing. I never gave him anything, I said softly. I would never... I know. Something in Luciano's expression softened, just slightly, a crack in marble, which is why you're not in immediate danger, he continued. But Marcus is getting desperate. He knows I'm closing in. And desperate men do desperate things to the people closest to them. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Another text from Marcus. Change of plans. Come to the parking garage. Level B3. Now. Luciano's eyes flicked to my phone, then back to my face. Don't go. It wasn't a command. It was a warning. He's my boyfriend, I said, even as uncertainty sneaked in through every syllable. If he's in trouble, maybe I can help him. Talk to him. There has to be an explanation. The explanation is that he's been using you. Luciano moved nearer, his presence overwhelming in a way that had nothing to do with physical space. And now he's planning to use you as either a hostage or a scapegoat. Possibly both. The champagne tower reflected in Luciano's eyes looked like imprisoned fire. Around us, Romano's New Year's Eve celebration continued. Couples dancing, glasses clinking, countdown clock ticking toward midnight. 45 minutes until the new year. 45 minutes until I was supposed to kiss Marcus and pretend everything was fine. Why do you care what happens to me? The question escaped before I had a chance to stop it. Luciano was quiet for a prolonged period, his gaze scanning across my face like he was memorizing details. Because you served me coffee 3 months ago during a business meeting, and when one of my associates spoke rudely to you, you held your ground with more dignity than men who claim to be powerful. Because you work 2 jobs to support yourself and never complain. Because Marcus Chen is a parasite, and you deserve better than being collateral damage in his failures. He'd noticed me, had been watching. The realization should have felt creepy, but instead, it felt like being seen for the first time in years. My phone chimed again. Where are you? I'm waiting. What happens if I don't go? I asked. You stay here, under my protection. And when Marcus realizes you're not coming, he'll make a mistake. Luciano extended his hand, palm up, an invitation rather than a demand. Let me handle him. And if I do go? His jaw stiffened. Then I follow you to make sure you survive his plan. But I'd prefer you choose the option that doesn't require me to kill your boyfriend in a parking garage on New Year's Eve. The nonchalant way he said kill should have sent me running. Instead, I found myself thinking about Marcus's lies, his distance, the way he'd made me feel insignificant and grateful for crumbs of attention. I thought about Gina's warnings and my own ignored instincts. I placed my phone in Luciano's outstretched hand. Good girl, he spoke quietly, the words sending an unexpected chill running through me. He pocketed my phone and turned to Gina. Take her to my suite, top floor. Passcode is your birthday, Ms. Morrison. How do you know my birthday? But even as I asked, I knew. Luciano Vitale made it his business to know things. I know everything about people who interest me. His thumb caressed across my knuckles before he released my hand. Go. Stay there until I come for you. And Marcus? Luciano's smile was icy and definitive. Won't be starting the new year with you, or anyone else. Luciano's suite occupied the entire 42nd floor, accessible only by private elevator. Gina entered the passcode 0415, my birthday, and the doors glided open to reveal not a hotel room, but a residence. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city skyline like a painting, with lights spreading toward it in a glittering sprawl. The furniture was expensive but lived in, books stacked on tables beside half-empty wine glasses, a leather jacket draped over a chair. This was where he lived. Not just stayed during business trips, but actually lived. Jesus, Gina breathed, setting down her tray on a marble counter. I've cleaned every room in this hotel, and I had no idea this existed. I wandered toward the windows, my mirrored image ghostly against the city beyond. Somewhere down there, Marcus was waiting in a parking garage, probably checking his watch, maybe composing another message to lure me into whatever trap he'd constructed. Had he ever loved me? Or could it be that I'd been a mark from the start? Chosen because I worked at the right hotel, had access to the right spaces, was lonely enough to ignore obvious warning signs. Stella. Gina showed up next to me with 2 glasses of wine from Luciano's personal collection. You okay? I don't know what I am. I accepted the glass but didn't drink from it. 6 hours ago, I thought I knew what my life looked like. Now I'm hiding in a Mafia boss's penthouse while he deals with my criminal boyfriend. Ex-boyfriend? Gina corrected. And honestly, this is the most exciting New Year's Eve we've had since that celebrity wedding where the bride ran off with the wedding planner. Despite everything, I laughed. It came out shaky, teary, but it was real. What am I supposed to do now? Now? Gina clinked her glass against mine. We wait. We drink excellent wine. And we watch Luciano Vitale do whatever terrifying thing he's about to do to Marcus Chen. The elevator chimed. We both stood still, wine glasses suspended midair. The doors opened, and Luciano stepped out, his suit jacket missing, shirt sleeves rolled to his elbows, a thin cut across his left cheekbone that was already beginning to bruise. Is he... I couldn't finish the question. Alive. Luciano moved to the bar, poured 3 fingers of whiskey, and drank half of it in one swallow. In police custody. Turns out he had quite the collection of evidence in his car. Stolen documents, surveillance photos of my properties, and a gun he was planning to use to persuade you to help him access my personal safe. The wine glass shook in my hand. Gina took it before I could drop it. You were right, I said numbly, about all of it. I wish I'd been wrong. Luciano crossed to where I stood, his eyes probing my face. Up close, I could see the violence written on him. Bruised knuckles, the cut on his cheek, a darkness on his face that suggested Marcus had suffered far worse before the police arrived. He said things. About you. Things I won't repeat because they don't deserve air. What kind of things? The kind that reveal he never knew you at all. Luciano reached out slowly, telegraphing the movement, giving me time to step away. When I didn't, his fingers skimmed the tear sliding down my cheek. You're safe now. That's all that matters. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt void. Scooped out, the space where Marcus had been now just an aching absence. Why does being safe feel worse than being in danger? Because danger was familiar. His thumb caressed the line of my jaw with unexpected gentleness. Safety is new, unfamiliar. It takes time to trust it. The city beyond the windows flared up in premature fireworks, someone's party starting early, gold and silver sparks reflected in the glass. Gina cleared her throat softly. I'm going to head back downstairs, she said, already moving toward the elevator. Stella, take the night off. I'll cover your section. Gina? Honey, you just found out your boyfriend was a con artist using you in a scheme against a mafia boss. You're allowed to skip cleanup duty. She hit the elevator button, then paused. Besides, something tells me you're in good hands. The doors slid closed behind her, abandoning me to my thoughts with Luciano Vitale and the burden of it all that had broken apart in the past hour. You should sit, he said. You're shaking. I was. My whole body trembled with delayed shock, adrenaline crash, and a feeling I couldn't name. Luciano guided me to the leather sofa, then draped a cashmere throw over my shoulders with the deliberate attention of someone used to handling fragile things. I don't understand why you helped me, I said as he settled next to me, close enough that I could smell his cologne. Sandalwood, and something more shadowed, more complex. You don't know me. I know enough. He set his whiskey glass on the table between us. I know you work twice as hard as anyone else at that hotel and never ask for recognition. I know you send money to your younger sister every month even though it means you eat ramen for dinner. I know you read poetry books on your breaks and pretend they're work manuals when your manager walks by. Heat engulfed my cheeks. You've been watching me. Yes. No apology, no justification. Just the simple truth. Why? Luciano was quiet for a long moment, his dark eyes gripping mine with a strength that caught my breath. 3 months ago, you served coffee during a negotiation with a business partner who thought disrespecting staff made him look powerful. He snapped his fingers at you, called you girl, and demanded you bring him a different cup because the first one wasn't hot enough. Do you remember what you did? I remembered. The man had been insufferable, treating everyone in the room like servants except Luciano. I brought him a new cup, apologized for the inconvenience. You brought him a new cup, Luciano agreed. But first, you smiled at him with such perfect, poisonous politeness that everyone in the room knew exactly what you thought of him. Then you set the cup down so precisely that not a single drop spilled, apologized with a voice like silk over razor blades, and walked away with your dignity intact. And I thought... He paused, something vulnerable passing over his features. I thought, there's someone who knows how to be strong without being cruel. My heart beat wildly pressed to my side. That's why you noticed me? Because I didn't spill coffee on an asshole? I noticed you because you reminded me that power doesn't always announce itself. That sometimes the strongest people are the ones serving champagne at parties they can't afford to attend. His hand reached for mine on the sofa between us, fingers entwining as if it was the most natural thing in the world. And I kept noticing because every time I saw you, I wanted to know more. Wanted to understand what made someone so obviously brilliant waste her time on mediocre men who didn't deserve her. You mean Marcus? I mean every man who made you feel like you needed to earn basic respect. Luciano's thumb glided over circles on my palm of the hand, the touch simultaneously soothing and electrifying. Including me, if I've done the same. The vulnerability in the sound of his voice undid something beside my chest. This man, who commanded rooms with a glance, who apparently ended threats with his bare hands, who existed in a world of violence and power I couldn't begin to understand, was asking if he'd hurt me. You saved me tonight, I whispered. That's not the same as hurting me. Isn't it? His free hand moved upward to touch the bruise forming on his cheek. I brought violence into your life, exposed you to truths about your boyfriend that shattered your trust, pulled you into my world without asking if you wanted to be here. Would you have let me walk into that parking garage if I'd insisted? No. The word was immediate, absolute. I'd have followed you down there and ended Marcus before he could touch you, which would have traumatized you in different ways. I should have been afraid of the relaxed way he discussed ending someone's life. Instead, I found myself moving closer, drawn by the contradiction of this man who could be both deadly and tender. What happens now? Now? Luciano checked his watch. We have 15 minutes until midnight. You were supposed to spend it with Marcus, starting the new year with false promises and continued manipulation. Instead, he stood, pulling me gently to my feet. Instead, you're here, safe, free, with choices that are entirely your own. What choices? He led me to the windows overlooking the city. Below us, people assembled in the streets, champagne bottles ready, couples positioned for midnight kisses. The countdown clock on a nearby building showed 14 minutes. You can walk away, Luciano said, his breath soft against my ear as he stood behind me. Go downstairs, finish your shift, collect your paycheck, and never see me again. I'll make sure you're protected. Marcus's associates won't touch you. Your job at the hotel is secure. Your life goes back to normal. That's one option. The tone of my voice came out breathier than intended, awareness of his proximity making my skin hypersensitive. What's the other? His hands draped over my shoulders, steady and sure. You stay. Let me take you to dinner tomorrow. Let me show you what it looks like when someone treats you the way you deserve. Let me... He paused, and I felt the vulnerability in his hesitation. Let me earn the chance to know you, really know you, not as the woman who serves my coffee or survives my enemies, but Estella, who reads poetry and supports her sister and refuses to let anyone diminish her light. I turned in his arms, finding myself inches from his face, close enough to see flecks of gold in his dark eyes. You're a dangerous man, Luciano Vitale. Extremely. No denial, no false reassurance. Your world isn't safe. No, but I am. For you. His hand cupped my face with devastating gentleness. I can't promise you normalcy or simplicity. Can't pretend that being with me won't come with complications. But I can promise that you'll never wonder if you matter. Never question if you're valued. Never settle for less than everything. The countdown clock showed 10 minutes. In the streets below, people were beginning to chant, building toward the moment when 1 year became another. I barely know you, I spoke quietly. Then let's change that. Luciano's thumb caressed across my lower lip, the touch conveying electricity along my back. Starting now. Starting with you making a choice that's entirely yours, not influenced by guilt or obligation or fear. What do you want, Stella? What did I want? For 8 months, I'd wanted Marcus to love me. Before that, I'd wanted my ex-boyfriend to see my worth. Before that, I'd wanted my father to stay instead of leaving when I was 12. I'd spent years wanting men to choose me, bending myself into molds that might finally be enough. But standing in Luciano Vitale's arms, with the city glittering beneath us and a new year approaching, I realized I'd been asking the wrong question. It wasn't about what I wanted from men. It was about what I wanted for myself. The word stuck in my throat, too honest, too raw. Tell me. His forehead touched mine, the intimacy of the gesture more profound than any kiss. Whatever it is, tell me. I want to stop being invisible. The confession tumbled out, years of swallowed feelings finally given voice. I want someone to see me, really see me, and not look away. I want to matter, to take up space without apologizing for it. My voice broke. I want to start the new year belonging to myself instead of disappearing into someone else's story. Luciano pulled back just enough to look into my eyes, and what I saw on his face caught my breath. Not pity, not even sympathy, yet acknowledgement, understanding, the look of someone who'd fought the same battle and carried the marks to prove it. Then let me make you a promise, Stella Morrison. His speech was low and intense, with every word meticulously chosen. You will never be invisible to me. You will matter every single day, in ways large and small. And you will always, always belong to yourself first. I don't want someone who disappears into my world. I want someone who stands beside me, who challenges me, who reminds me that power means nothing without purpose. You don't know if I'm that person. I know enough. He smiled, and his face changed from dangerous to devastating. I know you're brave enough to trust a mafia boss instead of running. I know you're strong enough to survive heartbreak and still hope for something better. I know. His hand reached out to mine again, bringing it to his chest where I could feel his heart beating. I know that you make me want to be the kind of man who deserves you. The countdown clock showed 5 minutes. One dinner, I said, the words coming across like jumping off a cliff and discovering I could fly. Tomorrow night. You take me somewhere that doesn't require me to serve champagne. Anywhere you want. And you answer my questions. All of them. About your work, your family, the things people whisper about when you walk into rooms. The look on his face grew serious. Some of those answers will scare you. Then I'll decide if I'm scared. I moved nearer, eliminating the last inches between us. But I won't be kept in the dark. Won't be protected from the truth like I'm too fragile to handle it. If I'm going to explore this... I motioned between us, the word "this" carrying the gravity of potential. Then I need honesty. Brutal honesty or comfortable honesty? The truth. Always. My hand remained over his heart, feeling the consistent beat below my palm. Even when it's ugly. Especially when it's ugly. Luciano covered my hand, entwined with his, holding it against his chest, as if to make a vow. You have a deal, Stella. One dinner. Complete honesty. And if, after hearing what my life really looks like, you want to walk away, I'll let you go. No pressure, no manipulation, no consequences. You'd really let me go? Something painful passed across his features. Letting you go would destroy me, but keeping you against your will would destroy us both. So yes, if that's what you choose, I'll honor it. The countdown clock showed 3 minutes. Around us, the city paused in anticipation. I could feel the excitement mounting. Millions of people preparing to mark the moment when time reset itself, when mistakes could be forgiven and futures reimagined. In movies, this would be the moment for a kiss. The grand romantic gesture that sealed the deal. But Luciano didn't move, didn't lean in or pull me closer, just held my hand against his heart and waited for me to choose. Ask me, I spoke quietly. His eyes darkened with understanding. Stella Morrison, can I kiss you when the clock strikes midnight? Are you asking because you think you should? Or because you want to? I'm asking because I've wanted to kiss you since the moment you demolished that rude businessman with a smile. Because I've spent 3 months imagining what you'd taste like. Because right now, with you in my arms and a new year about to begin, I can't think of anything I want more than to start it with your mouth on mine. His free hand slid into my hair, fingers tangling in the strands. But only if you want it to. The countdown clock showed 2 minutes. I rose on my toes, bringing my lips close enough to his that I could feel the heat of his breath. Yes. Yes to the kiss or yes to dinner? Yes to the kiss. I smiled against his mouth, feeling courageous and terrified and more true than I'd sensed in ages. Dinner? We'll figure out tomorrow. Right now? The clock showed 1 minute. Right now I want to start the new year kissing someone who actually sees me. I see you, Stella. The sound of his voice was rough, strained, barely controlled. Every brilliant, complicated, beautiful part of you. The crowds below began chanting, 10, 9, 8. Then show me, I spoke quietly. 7, 6, 5. Luciano's hold firmed, pulling me flush against him. 4, 3, 2. Happy New Year, Stella. 1. His mouth found mine as the city exploded in celebration, fireworks draping the sky with gold and silver, horns blaring, strangers kissing strangers, the world marking time's passage with noise and light. But in Luciano's arms, all of it faded. There was only the pressure of his lips against mine, the taste of whiskey and promises, the feeling of falling and being caught simultaneously. The kiss was nothing like Marcus's had been. Tentative, apologetic, like he wasn't sure I was worth the effort. Luciano kissed me like I was oxygen and he'd been drowning. Like I was the answer to a question he'd been asking his entire life. His hand supported my head with such careful reverence while his mouth claimed mine with absolute certainty, the contradiction making me dizzy. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, the fireworks were still lighting up the sky. Well, I managed, my fingers holding his shirt to keep my knees from buckling. That was insufficient. Luciano's forehead pressed against mine again, his breathing as ragged as my own. Entirely insufficient. I'm going to need to kiss you approximately 1,000 more times before I even begin to get it out of my system. I laughed, the sound surprised and genuine. 1,000? That's quite specific. I'm a man who plans ahead. His thumb glided over my swollen lower lip. Though I suspect 1,000 won't be enough either. I might need a lifetime. You barely know me, I reminded him, repeating my earlier words. Then let's change that. He repeated his own words back to me, but this time they carried a different weight. Not a pledge of potential, but a declaration of intention. Starting tomorrow, 7 o'clock. I'll pick you up from your apartment. You know where I live? His smile was equal parts contrite and unapologetic. I know where you live. I know you drink your coffee black with 2 sugars. I know you volunteer at the Children's Literacy Center on Tuesday mornings before your shift. I know you're afraid of thunderstorms and love old movies and cry during opera even though you pretend not to. I search for the right word. Stalking. That's stalking, Luciano. It's thorough research on someone I intend to pursue. He had the grace to look slightly abashed. In my defense, I was planning to ask you out properly. Take you to dinner. Charm you. Let you decide if you wanted to see me again. Marcus just accelerated the timeline. By being a criminal who tried to use me in a scheme against you. Yes, extremely inconvenient of him. Luciano's expression clouded, though it did give me an excuse to do this. He motioned to the space around us. His private suite, the intimate conversation, the new year beginning with me in his arms instead of alone in a parking garage. The adrenaline that had supported me through the past hour was beginning to fade, replaced by profound fatigue. I wobbled gently, and Luciano's arms immediately tightened. You need rest, he said. It's been, he checked his watch, the most intense New Year's Eve in recent memory. I should go home. Yet as I spoke it, I didn't move. Couldn't imagine leaving the safety of this space, the comfort of his embrace. Or you could stay. Luciano stepped back, giving me physical and emotional space. Guest room is through that door. Bathroom is stocked with everything you might need. I'll sleep out here on the sofa. This is your home, and you're my guest. A guest who just had her life turned inside out and deserves comfort, not more complications. He guided me gently toward the guest room door. Sleep. When you wake up, we'll figure out the rest. The guest room was smaller than the main space, but no less luxurious. A platform bed with hotel-quality linens, blackout curtains that would block the morning sun, and a bathroom that belonged in a spa. On the bed, someone had laid out clothes, soft pajama pants, a t-shirt with a fragrance like Luciano's cologne, and a thick robe. I turned, but Luciano was already retreating. I texted my housekeeper while you were processing everything, he said from the doorway. She keeps emergency supplies for unexpected guests. The clothes might be too big, but they're clean. Thank you. The words came across as inadequate for everything he'd done, but they were all I had. Stella? He paused in the doorway, illuminated from behind by the urban glow beyond. You're not starting the new year with him. You're starting it free. Whatever comes next, whether it's one dinner or a lifetime of them, that choice is yours. Sleep well. The door closed softly, leaving me by myself with my thoughts in a year full of possibilities. I came to sunlight shining past curtains I didn't recognize, and the smell of coffee that definitely didn't come from my ancient machine at home. For a disoriented moment, I thought I'd overslept for my shift at Romano's. Then memory returned in a rush. Marcus's texts, Luciano's warning, the kiss at midnight that had revised my understanding of what desire felt like. The clock on the nightstand showed 10:47 a.m. I'd slept for over 10 hours. I found Luciano in the kitchen, dressed casually in dark jeans and a navy sweater, reading a newspaper while scrambled eggs sizzled in a pan. He looked up when I entered, and his smile was inviting enough to dissolve the last of my doubt. Good morning. He filled the mug with coffee into a mug without asking, adding 2 sugars with the carefulness of someone who'd paid attention. I wasn't sure if you'd want breakfast, or if you'd panic and try to sneak out while I wasn't looking. I considered the sneaking, I owned up, accepting the coffee. But I'm not a coward. No, you're not. He plated the eggs with surprising domesticity for a man who probably had staff to handle such things. Which is one of many reasons I'm hoping you'll still have dinner with me tonight. I sat at the counter, both hands wrapped around the warm mug, in the soft glow of dawn, with his guard lowered, and his dark hair slightly mussed. Luciano looked less like a dangerous Mafia boss, and more like a man who cooked breakfast for women he wanted to impress. The contradiction was unsettling and irresistible. Tell me something true, I said. Something you don't tell most people. He set a plate in front of me, then leaned back against the counter, thinking. I was 7, he began. when I realized my family's business wasn't normal. We were at a restaurant. I watched my father hand the owner an envelope of cash. Not for the meal, we'd already paid. For protection, my father explained later. A guarantee that nothing bad would happen to the restaurant or the owner's family. He took a slow sip of coffee. I asked him who we were protecting them from. He said, "From people like us, if they don't pay." The eggs on my plate went cold as I absorbed what that meant, what it would mean if I chose to see him again. "Did that scare you?" I asked. "Terrified me," he said quietly. "For years, I thought we were the monsters in every story." His gaze drifted distant. Then I grew up and realized the world isn't that simple. The restaurant owner was already being extorted by a rival gang, violent men, who put his wife in the hospital when he refused to pay. My father's protection was real, but that didn't make it right. It just made it complicated. "And now?" I asked. "Do you still take protection money?" "No." The word was firm. "Final. When I took over the family business, I changed things. Legitimate enterprises only. Real estate, hospitality, private security. We still have influence. We still operate in the shadows. But we don't prey on the vulnerable." I met his eyes. "Then what do you prey on?" His smile was sharp. "Dangerous. People like Marcus. Criminals who target innocents. Corrupt officials who abuse power." He paused, searching for the right word. "Think of me as equilibrium. I keep the balance between legitimate society and the darkness it prefers to ignore." I finally took a bite of eggs. They were perfect. Creamy, delicately seasoned. The kind of breakfast that proved he paid attention to more than just my coffee order. "And if I have dinner with you tonight?" I asked. "If I decide to keep seeing you, will I become part of that darkness?" "You'll become part of my life," Luciano said carefully. "Which means you'll see things most people never do. Know things that might change how you see the world. But I will never, never ask you to compromise your integrity or participate in anything that violates your conscience." His voice softened. "You'll always be exactly who you are, Stella Morrison, the woman who reads poetry, who helps children learn to read, who refuses to let anyone diminish her. That's a pretty promise." "It's the truth," he said. "The same truth I promised you last night." He moved around the counter and sat beside me. "Ask me anything else," Luciano continued. "About the family, the business, the violence you're afraid to name. If we're doing this, if you're even considering giving me a chance, you deserve to know exactly what you're walking into." So I asked, for the next hour, I asked questions that should have sent me running. About territorial disputes and how they were resolved. About weapons, protection, whether he'd ever killed someone. About debts and favors. About the code of silence that governed his world. Luciano answered everything, with brutal honesty. Yes, he carried a gun. Yes, he'd used it, in self-defense, but the men were still dead. Yes, people feared him. And yes, sometimes that fear was justified. Yes, his business occasionally required violence, though he tried negotiation first. He didn't sanitize the truth, didn't excuse it, didn't pretend the darkness was secretly light. He laid it all out, and let me decide what to do with it. "I should be horrified," I said, when my questions finally ran dry. "You should be," he replied evenly. "I'd be concerned if you weren't." He hadn't touched me once during the conversation, giving me space to think without the pull of physical attraction. "But I'm not," I said. "Not the way I should be." I turned on the stool to face him fully. "I should be planning my exit strategy, figuring out how to politely decline dinner, putting distance between myself and a man who casually discusses killing people in parking garages." I pressed a hand to my chest, feeling my traitorous heart race. "Instead, I'm thinking about that kiss at midnight, about how safe I felt in your arms, and how much I want to understand why someone who can be so dangerous is making me scrambled eggs, like it's the most important thing he'll do today. You are the most important thing I'll do today." Luciano's hand brushed mine, slow, tentative, asking permission. "And tomorrow," he added softly, "and however many days you give me." A phone buzzed from somewhere nearby. Mine. I'd left it in the living room the night before. Luciano retrieved it, glanced briefly at the screen, then handed it to me. "It's your sister," he said. "She's probably worried. You didn't answer her New Year's texts. 17 missed messages. Most from my sister Emma, a few from Gina, and 3 from my manager at Romano's, asking if I was coming in for my shift. The shift that had started an hour ago. Shit. I slid off the stool, already calculating how fast I could get dressed. I called your manager this morning. Luciano's hand closed gently around my wrist, stopping my spiral. I explained you'd had a family emergency and needed a few days off. I authorized full pay for the missed shifts. You can't just do that. I can, and I did. His look was unapologetic. You were exhausted. You just had your life turned inside out. And I wanted to make sure you had time to process everything without worrying about rent money. It should have felt controlling. Instead, it felt like being cared for. A sensation so foreign, I almost didn't recognize it. I don't need you to. I know you don't. He released my wrist and stepped back. You're perfectly capable of taking care of yourself. But wanting to make your life easier isn't the same as thinking you're incapable. It's just... He swept a hand through his hair, frustrated with his own inability to articulate. It's what people do when they care. They remove obstacles, create space for rest, make scrambled eggs because proper nutrition matters. Despite everything, I smiled. You're very bossy for someone who claims to respect my autonomy. I'm a work in progress. His answering smile was self-deprecating. Decades of being in charge don't disappear overnight, but I'm trying. For you, I'm trying. I called Emma back first, assured her I was fine, just dealing with some boyfriend drama that I'd explain later. She demanded details, threatened to drive up from Boston if I didn't provide them immediately, and finally accepted my promise to call her properly tomorrow. Then I texted Gina a brief summary that probably raised more questions than it answered, but would keep her from filing a missing persons report. When I looked up from my phone, Luciano was watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. What? I asked. You're still here. He said it as if he were surprised. I gave you every reason to leave, answered questions that should have sent you running, and you're still here. Where else would I be? Anywhere but here. Somewhere safe and normal, with men who don't carry guns or have enemies or require honesty about the cost of being close to them. He crossed the distance between us slowly, as I might spook. Most people, when they see the reality of my life, they make excuses and disappear. Can't blame them. I'm not an easy choice. No, I agreed, you're not. But I thought about Marcus, who'd been an easy choice on paper. Charming, attentive, appropriately ambitious. A consultant with normal work hours and no dangerous secrets. Except all of it had been a lie. And the safe choice had nearly gotten me used as a hostage or worse. I thought about my father, who'd left because staying was too hard. About my ex-boyfriends who'd wanted me to be smaller, quieter, less complicated. About every time I'd contorted myself into an easier shape for men who still didn't choose me. And I thought about Luciano, who'd answered every uncomfortable question without flinching, who'd given me truth when lies would have been simpler, who looked at me like I was someone worth the effort of becoming a better man. But I'm tired of easy choices that turn out to be hard, I said. And I'm curious about what happens if I choose something hard that might turn out to be worth it. His breath left in a rush like I'd hit him. Stella! 7 o'clock, I interrupted. You said dinner at 7. Where are you taking me? Anywhere you want. Wrong answer. I moved nearer, encouraged by his earlier vulnerability. You've spent 3 months learning what I like. You know my coffee order and my volunteer schedule and apparently where I live. So you decide. Take me somewhere that shows me who you are when you're not being the dangerous mafia boss or the protective savior. Show me Luciano. Just Luciano. A change occurred on his face. Surprise melting into something more intense. More intense. That might be scarier than showing you the violence. Then I'll decide if I'm scared. I borrowed his words from last night. But I want the truth. Always. Always, he promised. His hand ascended to cup my face, thumb caressing my cheekbone with reverence that sent a flutter through my stomach. Though I should warn you, Luciano without the armor is not nearly as impressive as the dangerous Mafia boss. I'll take my chances. He kissed me then, softer than midnight, but no less consuming. A kiss that had the flavor of coffee and promises, and the terrifying possibility of something genuine. When we finally broke apart, both gasping, the city beyond the windows was fully awake. People starting their new year with resolutions and hope, and the belief that this time, this year, things would be different. Maybe they were right. Maybe this time I'd chosen differently. Luciano picked me up at 7, wearing jeans and a leather jacket, driving a car that was nice but not ostentatious, a subtle test I only realized later. He took me to a small Italian restaurant in a neighborhood I'd never explored, where the owner greeted him with sincere warmth and zero fear. Luciano. The elderly man embraced him like family. You didn't call ahead. We're packed tonight. I know, Tony. I was hoping you might have space at the corner table. Luciano motioned toward a small two-top tucked near the kitchen, clearly the worst seat in the house. I'm trying to impress someone. Tony looked at me, then back at Luciano, then laughed so hard he had to wipe his eyes. You brought a date to the kitchen table? Madonna, you really are trying to impress her. Only someone special gets the worst seat. Everyone else you put at the window. The side table was cramped, noisy with kitchen sounds, and absolutely perfect. No pretension, no performance, just good food served on assorted plates while chefs shouted in Italian, and Tony's granddaughter practiced violin upstairs, the music floating down like a blessing. This is your test, isn't it? I said as Luciano poured wine from a carafe instead of an expensive bottle. See if I'm someone who needs the window table. Would you have preferred the window? Absolutely not. I took a bite of the homemade ravioli that Tony had personally delivered. This is real. Window tables are performance. Luciano's smile could have lit the city. You passed. I didn't know I was being tested. You're always being tested, just like I am. He reached across the small seat to occupy my hand. You're evaluating whether I'm worth the risk. I'm evaluating whether you're someone who'll stay when life gets complicated. Both are fair. Over dinner, he told me about growing up in a family where violence was the norm and loyalty was law. About his mother, who died when he was 12 and left him alone in a world of men who solved problems with fists. About the choice he'd made when I was 25 to either carry on the family's brutal traditions or forge a different path. Still powerful, still operating outside conventional rules, but not needlessly cruel. My father never forgave me for going soft, Luciano said, spinning his wineglass between long fingers. Said I was destroying everything he'd built. Maybe I was, but I couldn't be him. Couldn't hurt people just to prove I could. What happened to him? Heart attack 5 years ago. Died angry at me for changing things. He said it without emotion, but I saw the pain beneath. Never got to tell him the business is more profitable now than it ever was under his leadership. That respect works better than fear. That, his voice cracked slightly, that I was trying to make him proud, not destroy his legacy. I squeezed his hand, giving quiet comfort for wounds that still bled. Your turn, he said, clearly ready to move past his own vulnerability. Tell me something true, something you don't tell most people. So I told him about my father leaving, about the bankruptcy that followed, my mother's depression, and the years of being responsible for Emma while barely being a teenager myself. About learning early that love was conditional, that men left when things got hard, that I needed to be perfect. Perfect grades, perfect behavior, perfect gratitude, to deserve staying. That's why Marcus hurt so much, I owned up. Not because I loved him, I'm not sure I did, but because he was one more person proving I wasn't enough. That even when I did everything right, I still got left. You are enough. Luciano's voice was fierce. More than enough. Anyone who made you feel otherwise was revealing their own limitations, not yours. You barely know me. I know enough. He stood, pulling me up with him. Dance with me. There's no music. There's always music. He wrapped his arms around me in the confined area between tables, moving softly to the sound of kitchen clatter and distant violin. Other diners smiled as they passed, and Tony winked from the doorway, but I barely noticed. All my attention was on the man holding me like I was precious. "This is who you are," I said against his chest. "This is Luciano without the armor." Terrifying, isn't it? Terrifying, I agreed. And wonderful. And completely unfair because now I'm definitely falling for you, and we've only had one proper date. He pulled back just enough to see my face. "Is that a problem?" "Yes. Because falling for you means choosing a complicated life. Means accepting that sometimes you'll have to leave in the middle of the night for business I can't ask about. Means people might use me to get to you, or target me because they want to hurt you, or..." I lay my forehead resting on his. "Means I have to be brave enough to trust this. Trust you. Trust that you won't leave when it gets hard." "I won't leave." The promise was absolute. Ever. I'm not your father or your ex-boyfriends or Marcus. When I commit to someone, I commit completely. No conditions, no escape clauses. You get all of me, the dangerous parts and the soft parts and everything in between. That's a big promise. It's the truth, which I always give you. We stayed like that, swaying in the corner of a crowded restaurant, while Tony's granddaughter practiced violin, and the city beyond, life went on its first day of a new year. Eventually, we finished dinner. Luciano insisted on introducing me to Tony's wife in the kitchen, where I learned he'd been coming to this restaurant since he was 7, that Tony had known his mother, that this place was as close to home as he'd ever known. "He's different with you," Tony whispered to me, while Luciano argued good-naturedly with the chef about proper pasta technique. "Softer. Human. You're good for him, Bella." "I'm terrified of him," I owned up. "Good. Smart women are always a little scared of men like Luciano. Keeps him honest." Tony patted my shoulder. "But you're brave enough to be here anyway. That's what matters." We walked back to my apartment through streets still decorated with traces of New Year's celebrations. Luciano held my hand, pointed out buildings he owned, and told stories about the city's hidden history. When we reached my building, a modest walk-up in a neighborhood that was improving but not yet arrived, he walked me to my door like a gentleman from a different era. "I had a wonderful time," I said, key in hand, suddenly uncertain about what came next. "So did I." He leaned, leaning on the door frame, making no move to invite himself in. "When can I see you again?" "Tomorrow?" His smile was pure joy. "Tomorrow. I'll cook for you at my place. Something simple. Pasta, wine, conversation without audience." "You cook?" "I cook. My mother insisted I learn before she died. Said no vitale man should be helpless in his own kitchen." His expression softened with gentleness with memory. "She'd have liked you. Would have appreciated someone who doesn't pretend to be fearless, but chooses bravery anyway." I rose on my toes to kiss him, brief and sweet. "Thank you for tonight. For showing me the real you. Thank you for staying after I did." He kissed me back, deeper, until we were both breathing hard in my softly, softly illuminated hallway. "Go inside, Stella. Before I forget, I'm trying to be honorable." "What if I don't want you to be honorable?" His giggle was pained. "Then I'd remind you that we have time. That rushing won't make this more real or more lasting. That I want to earn you, not just have you." He stroked my cheek. "Go. Tomorrow I'll cook you dinner. Show you more of my life. Give you more opportunities to decide if this is what you want." I went inside because he was right. We had time. But I watched from my window as he crossed the street to his car, as he looked back up at my building like he couldn't quite believe I was real. When my phone rang a moment later, it was a text from him. "Thank you for giving me a chance. Sleep well. Dream of tomorrow." I did. Tomorrow turned into next week. Next week turned into a month. A month became 3. Luciano kept every promise. He cooked for me. Pasta like his mother taught him. Elaborate dinners that took hours. Simple breakfasts when I stayed over. He answered every question about his business, no matter how uncomfortable it was. He introduced me to his inner circle, men and women who occupied the same gray spaces he did, who treated me with respect tinged by curiosity about the woman who'd captured Luciano Vitali's attention. He allowed me see the violence, too. Not directly. He never brought me to dangerous situations. But in the aftermath. Late-night phone calls he had to take, bruises he explained honestly, the weight he carried when business required hard choices. "Tell me," I'd say when I witnessed the shadows in his eyes. And he would. Not every detail, but enough. Enough that I grasped the price of the world he inhabited. Enough that my choice to stay was informed, conscious, eyes wide open. I met Tony's family properly and became a regular at the corner table. Started leaving poetry books at Luciano's place, my toothbrush in his bathroom, pieces of myself scattered through his life. He did the same, showed up at the literacy center to watch me work with kids, attended Romano's events just to see me in my element, and learned my sister's favorite candy to send her care packages in Boston. We fought, of course, about his overprotectiveness, my independence, and the times his world intruded on mine in ways that appeared invasive. But we fought fair. No walking away, no silent treatments, just brutal honesty until we understood each other again. 3 months in, Emma came to visit. I was nervous about the meeting, worried she'd see only the danger, only the impossibility of our relationship. Instead, she pulled me aside after dinner and said, "He looks at you like you hung the moon. Like you're the answer to a question he's been asking his whole life. If you're happy, Stella, then I'm happy for you." I am happy, I realized, terrified and confused and completely out of my depth, but happy. Then hold on to that. Emma hugged me tight. "You've spent your whole life making yourself smaller for men who didn't deserve you. Don't do that with him. Make him rise to meet you instead." She was right. And Luciano did rise, modified his schedule to match mine, included me in decisions, made space for my opinions even when they challenged him. He treated my work as important as his, my dreams as valid, my boundaries as absolute. 6 months after New Year's Eve, he took me back to Romano's hotel for an event. We walked through the grand ballroom where we'd met, past the spot where the champagne tower had stood, to the elevator that led to his private suite. "Why are we here?" I asked as the elevator climbed. "Because 6 months ago you made a choice in this building that changed my life." The doors opened to the 42nd floor, and I wanted to mark the occasion properly. The suite looked different than I remembered. Softer, more lived in. My books on the shelves, my photos on the walls, evidence of my presence threaded throughout his space. "I have a proposition," Luciano said, leading me to the windows overlooking the city. "And before you answer, I want you to know there's no pressure, no expectation. Just a question from someone who loves you." My heart stopped. "Luciano, move in with me." He turned me to face him, hands soft on my shoulders. "Not because I'm trying to control you, or because I think you can't handle your own place, but because I want to wake up with you every morning. Want to cook you breakfast and hear about your day, and build a life together that's ours. I want..." The tone of his voice grew rough. "I want you to stop being a visitor in my life and become a permanent part of it." That's a big step. It is. Which is why I'm asking, not telling. He motioned around the suite. "This can be our space, yours as much as mine. We can redecorate, change anything you want, make it feel like home instead of a hotel. Or if you prefer, we can look for something new together, a place that's ours from the beginning." I looked around the suite that had served as my sanctuary 6 months ago. Thought about my modest walk-up with its leaky faucet and noisy neighbors, the place I'd called home because I'd never imagined deserving better. Thought about waking up in Luciano's arms instead of alone, building something together instead of parallel lives that occasionally intersected. "What about when your business gets dangerous?" I asked. "When people target you and I'm collateral damage? Then I protect you, always, completely." The look on his face was fierce. "But I won't lie and say there's no risk. Living with me means accepting that danger is part of the package. Means some nights I'll have security posted outside, or you'll have to change your routine, or we'll need to be careful in ways that feel restrictive. You're not selling this well. I'm being honest, which you always asked for. He cupped my face between his hands. I can't give you normal, Stella. Can't promise you safety or simplicity. But I can promise you'll matter every single day. That you'll be cherished and protected and given every opportunity to be exactly who you are. That I'll love you with everything I have for as long as you'll let me. That's better salesmanship. Is it working? I thought about the girl who'd stood in this room 6 months ago, heartbroken and lost, making a choice to trust a dangerous man instead of a familiar liar. Thought about every risk I'd taken since then, every instance of openness, every time I'd chosen bravery over comfort. Yes, I said, I'll move in with you. His kiss was deep and claiming, full of vow and possession and a tenderness which caused my knees to go weak. When we finally broke apart, equally breathless, he pressed something into my hand. A key, not to the suite, but something else, smaller, older, more personal. My mother's jewelry box, he explained. Inside is her wedding ring. I'm not proposing, not yet. We have time for that. But I wanted you to have it. Wanted you to know that this isn't casual for me. That you're not temporary. That... He took a quivering breath. That I'm planning a future with you in it, if you'll have me. I opened the little velvet box. The ring inside was simple, a gold band with 3 small diamonds, polished by years of wearing. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. She'd want you to have it, Luciano whispered. Would want you to know that you're family now, that you belong here with me, building something that lasts. I closed the box carefully, reverently. I'll take care of it, until I'm ready to wear it. No pressure, he reminded me. We move at your pace, always. We stayed at the suite that night, making love in the bed where I'd once slept alone, marking the space as ours. In the morning, Luciano cooked breakfast while I called Emma to tell her the news. She screamed so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear, demanded to help me move, and threatened to disown me if I didn't let her design the new space. She's enthusiastic, Luciano observed when I finally hung up. She likes you. Against her better judgment, but still. I wrapped my arms around him from behind, pressing my face against his back. Thank you. For what? For seeing me. For not leaving. For making me believe I'm worth staying for. He turned in my arms, the look on his face impossibly tender. Stella Morrison, you are the easiest person in the world to stay with. The hard part is believing I deserve you staying too. Then we'll believe it together, I said. One day at a time. One day at a time, he agreed. Starting now. Starting with this life we're building. Starting with you. Finally. Permanently. Not starting the new year, or any year, with anyone but me. I kissed him, tasting coffee and promises and a future that I'd never dared imagine. Outside the windows, the city lay out underneath us. Millions of people living their own complicated stories, making their own unthinkable decisions, hoping their own risks would pay off. Mine had, against all odds, despite all logic, in defiance of every warning sign that should have sent me running, I'd chosen the dangerous man, and he'd chosen me back. Not because I was perfect, not because I made his life easier, but because I'd seen him, really seen him, and stayed anyway. Because he'd seen me and decided I was worth every complication, every risk, every instance of openness. We spent the rest of the day planning, which furniture to keep, which to donate, how to blend my life with his in ways that paid tribute to both. Gina came over with wine and opinions. Tony sent pasta, and Emma video-called every hour with new ideas. When darkness descended and our friends finally left, I stood close to the windows with Luciano behind me, his arms wrapped around my waist, his chin lying on my shoulder. Regrets? He asked. Thousands, I owned up, but not about this. Never about this. Good. His lips brushed my temple. Because you're stuck with me now. Forever, if I have anything to say about it. Forever is a long time, not nearly long enough. He turned me in his arms, his expression sober. I love you, Stella Morrison. Have loved you since you demolished that rude businessman with a smile. Will love you until the day I die. And probably after if there's an afterlife and I'm lucky enough to find you there. I love you too. The words came across as too small for the enormity of what I felt, but they were all I had. Even though you're dangerous and complicated and come with more baggage than an airport carousel. I'll work on the baggage. Don't. It's part of you. Part of what makes you real. I laid my hand over his heart, feeling the consistent beat below my palm. Just keep being honest. Keep showing me the truth, even when it's ugly. Keep choosing me the way I'm choosing you. Every day, he promised, for the rest of my life. Outside, the urban glow dazzled like captured stars. Inside, in Luciano Vitale's arms, I finally grasped the meaning of being home. Not a place, but a person. Not safety, but trust. Not the lack of fear, but the being of something worth being brave for. 6 months ago, I'd stood in a ballroom wondering if I'd ever be enough for anyone. Tonight, I stood in the arms of a man who'd spent half a year proving I was more than enough. I was everything. Not because I was perfect, but because I was real. And to him, that was more valuable than all the safety and simplicity in the world. We stayed at the windows until the city below began to quiet, talking about the future, where we'd travel, what we'd build, how we'd confront any obstacles that came next. And as fatigue set in, finally pulled us toward bed, Luciano murmured softly against my hair, "Thank you for staying, for choosing this, for not starting the new year with him." "Thank you for making me worth staying for," I spoke quietly back, "for giving me a reason to choose something real instead of something safe." We fell asleep tangled together, two complicated people building something uncomplicated in its truth, love, unvarnished and honest, dangerous and safe all at once. And when morning came, we started again. One day at a time, one selection at a time, one moment of gallantry at a time, together,